Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, welcome to another Crypto Maniacs podcast. Here with Task. He's excited, man. I know you're excited, Task. You know why you're excited? Because you saw what I just put in threads. You saw that I just found $135 worth of Ethereum, and I'm going to buy
I
Hive
did not
with it.
see that,
No?
but
Yeah.
congratulations, and I'll be curious to read your post about what you do with it and how you convert it to something, because I know you're just such a lover of Ethereum and MetaMask and all of that.
Our special guest today actually he might not know this, Task. Both of you guys have a big influence on me when it comes to Ethereum, and because of you two guys posting something like 3 years ago because of the Steam Hunt stuff, I actually got that Uniswap airdrop because of the post that you and our guest, the Marky Mark, is here. So because of you guys, I had some Uniswap. Thank you.
Well, I made the post because I got it from Marky. He was the one who put the post up about Steam Hunt and converting that, and I did that, and then, like you said, a year or two later, we got the Uniswap. So I have to give credit to Marky on that too.
It's all you, man. Because of you,
that was a nice airdrop.
Wasn't it?
Was it
It was great.
$1,200, I think.
Yeah, get it in your pocket, and then all of a sudden, I dumped it and bought Hive because I'm kind of a degen. But anyways, how you doing, man?
I held on to it for a little while. I'm doing well.
Good. So it's funny because you and I were talking the other night. You said you don't have anything to talk about, like promoting wise. You didn't launch anything, but you did. On April 1st, you launched the Hive offline mode.
Yes. Yeah, I figured I'd do something. I haven't been posting, but I figured I wanted to do something that was funny.
Oh, it was great, man. That was great. And I'm reading along, like, I see the Nokia kind of like image on your post, and I'm like, something's going on. And then I go and click the link because I look at the link, and it's Rick rolled. So it was great.
Did you get the reference? There's some hidden references in that post.
Oh, no. With the Nokia phone with the Hive logo on it, personally. No.
So
what was the reference?
So the middle algorithm is a reference to Silicon Valley TV show. It was the algorithm they used for Pied Piper that was able to compress video and be able to stream it. And it's the whole running joke of the entire show. And then it gets even funnier is there's a huge dick joke that goes on for like the entire episode where they're talking about I don't know what the audience level for this show is, so I won't get into details.
Oh, it is.
But they talk about coming up with the algorithm from middle out, and it's basically a gigantic dick joke. There's a YouTube video that plays that part. It's hysterical.
Oh, that's great. Dude, that was I appreciated the whole joke. It definitely made my weekend. So there you go.
Did you get the Discord link on the bottom? It goes to
I didn't click on that. Should I have clicked on that? Or was that?
It goes to Lassie Cash. Oh, who everyone knows I love. So everyone was joining Lassie Cash, and they're like, "What the fuck am I doing in here?" It's like, "What is this place?"
Oh man.
And I told them that the conversation might be a little bit flat, but the best crypto minds and crypto are in there.
I could tell you're having a lot of fun these days.
Yeah, I thought that would be funny.
In fairness, Marky is I don't want to say the butt of a joke, because the one making the videos is kind of a joke, but Marky's getting kind of infamous here with the YouTube videos about him and all the I don't even know what to call it. It's not even, I guess you could say accusations, but Marky has a major fan there who has a.
Are you talking about Jerry?
No. The one. What tells the one? You download
the one I linked in Leo like a couple weeks ago.
he made that video about you. Went on for like, yeah, you put it on Threads. It went on for about an
An
hour.
hour?
And
Oh
I
yeah,
said, I
that's
don't know.
really old. That's like 3 or 4 years old. But that's PSSEC documentary, and the whole thing started with him getting confused on what's going on, and then he made this video, which I thought was hysterical because it was so ironic. He's like saying that I have the magical ability to manipulate the blockchain directly, and he's like saying all these things that are complete, like obviously he has no clue what he's talking about, and he's wearing a T-shirt that says "Computer Whiz." But the best part of it is he starts off literally within the first minute of the video. He says, "Small minds talk about people. Um, great minds talk about ideas or things, and then geniuses talk about ideas." Then he spends 60 minutes talking about me. I thought that was the icing on the cake. I've watched the video like 4 times. It's hysterical. The whole thing is a gold mine of garbage, and it's just so funny. And I'm always into like deadpan and stupid humor and stuff like that. But I just find it so funny because it's just so ironic and um, it's just so messed up. And he's obviously doesn't really have a cute clue what he's talking about. But
I love it.
and then his little hand wave where he twiddles his fingers, a little hand wave to Marky. It's like it's just gold. Every so often I'll reshare it because it's just so funny.
Oh, I love this
Jerry
part.
Banfield's been talking about me lately,
Oh, really?
so I hear.
Jerry?
Yeah, he's been making
Another
videos and
classic.
he's talking about how Hive is going to zero, and one person's flagging him that's been dumping all their crypto. It's like I haven't dumped Hive. I mean, I've been accumulating since I started.
Yeah.
But went on a rant. He didn't name me personally, but I know who he's talking about because I'm the only one that flags him, really. So,
Jeez.
but
And what's got his craw going? Is it because you flag him, or is it because of something else?
he was pissed about downvotes and not related to me because I wasn't downvoting him at the time. But this was like 2 years ago, 3 years ago,
Uh,
and he made a campaign to remove downvotes, which didn't go over well and got him booted out of the top 20 because most of the people in top 20 support downvotes.
mhm.
Um, so he got booted from the top 20, and this is when he came out saying that he takes care of himself and he hurt his back by doing that. The combination of two got him booted from the top 20, and from there he just faded out into oblivion. But then he came out and said, and this is why I flag him, is because he said he's going to use Hive to just launch his products and talk shit about it. So that's why I flag him because he said that a long time ago, and he said he's just going to leverage Hive to sell his products and talk shit and convince people not to use it. And then he recently made a video, Hive going to zero, and talking about how bad it is and whatever, and about
Mm,
because one person's downvoting him and whatnot.
wow.
I mean, I say it all the time. I don't say it public that often, but if me downvoting you for 40 cents is changing the world and making it so bad, then you really don't have any support anyways. A lot of
Yeah.
times, a lot of people that complain about my downvotes, I'm downvoting 1%. And usually my 1% downvote is only like partially being used because I'm only removing 1 cent. And they're complaining, oh, you took so much money from me and all this stuff. It's like you don't have any votes. It's just a symbolic downvote at that point. There's a guy
Mm,
named Smidge IT or whatever. He used to complain all the time how I downvoted him forever and I took hundreds of thousands of dollars from him. He would only get 4 cents a post. And he was spamming like 20 times a day and posting YouTube videos of other people's YouTube videos and spamming. And the most I probably downvoted him 1,000 times. I probably took about 45 cents from him over the course of 1,000 downloads. It's just crazy. But um, another thing about Jerry Banfield lately is he goes on and posts, "I bought $50 of Blurt. I'm going to be a millionaire soon," and that's how all his videos are. Is they're just this scammy um, template he uses, and it's just so wrong.
well, do you know anything about that? Like, to be honest with you, I really don't keep up to date. But apparently, Blurt was the Hive killer. That's what everyone said. And then there was this exodus to Blurt, and is it even a thing anymore? Like I don't
I
know
wouldn't
anything
call it an
about
excess. And yes, it's a thing, and I know it quite well because
it.
I go on there every so often to see if I get any messages. There's one particular person, name is Network All Star in Hive.
Mhm.
Over there, it's like out something out matrix or something like that. But he talks shit about me all the time over there, and I go over there and just stir the pot and poke him a little bit once in a while. Because he's like talking about how Hive's going to zero and stuff like that. And yesterday, Blurt was down 22% in a day. So I
Mm,
posted that to him, linked the picture of it. He's always like, Hive will never be over 50 cents. It's never going to a dollar. It's going to go to zero. Hive's
mm,
dead. And he thinks I'm the destroyer of Hive because I
mm,
downvote people. But
right.
Well, Marky, I love how people think that you downvote people, so then you put the money in your pocket
oh yeah,
because
that's a
somehow
big one.
they magically believe you downvoting is going to give you the rewards instead of them. When in fact, I guess if you're using your 2 downvotes a day, it doesn't cost you anything. But if you're going beyond that, it's actually costing you.
Yeah, a lot of people think that downvotes are selfish and they're for selfish reasons. Like there's a guy anti-socialist who is in the anti-abuse department and does a lot of flagging and downvoting and stuff like that. And even he thinks that every time I downvote, I get 5% of the rewards back to me, which is absolute insanity.
Mm,
You get nothing for downvoting. And there's other people that use the technically correct term, or not term, but idea is that when you downvote, more rewards get distributed, so you get more rewards, which is technically correct. But I could downvote somebody for $100, and even if I did post, which I don't post anymore, but even if I did post, I would probably see less than a hundredth of a cent of that in terms
Yeah,
of the reward pool coming back to me because it's spread so thin across everybody. But they think that it's a selfish reason that I get rewards back from it, and it's absolute garbage. I mean,
mm,
even if I did post and I was the top on trending every single day with 10 posts a day, I probably wouldn't even see a cent back for $100 in downvotes. So
yeah,
that's absolutely ridiculous. But there's a lot of people that think that way and they don't understand how downvotes work and the reason for them and why I downvote and why other people downvote. But and I'm the uh um as for downvoting, I'm the least malicious downvoter out there. I don't downvote because I don't like people or I like what you say. I mean, I
mm,
have almost every single downvote I make is for the better of the platform.
hmm,
It's
mm,
not because I want to get revenge on people. I don't rage downvote. I'm not emotional. I most of the time I laugh at most of the bullshit that goes on. So I mean, I'm very
mm,
little effect to me in terms of emotional part of it.
mm. Yeah, that's a good. Like, I mean, that's the thing with me too. I mean, I think that they're definitely in place there, and there's a great reason for them to be there. It's just like you said, like, see the way you just said it, you kind of like chuckle at everything, and if people I think had that attitude towards this, I don't think people would take everything so personally.
Oh,
Like,
I'm a class clown, so I'm
oh, it's
always
great.
making
It's
fun of everything.
oh the Jerry Banfield reference of servicing himself was just that was
I was
top
gonna, I,
shelf
I
right
was
I was
there.
gonna
trying to be
say,
PG
Yeah,
or
it was
G.
well, I was gonna say for the ones who don't understand that reference, do you maybe have a drawing that you could send to John that he could post just so people understand what we're referring
no. Let's put that into Steam history. How about that? We never like just
Speaking
speak.
about downvotes, Hagen started vote posting again recently, like a
Oh,
couple
really?
weeks ago, just one post and stuff like that. And I think just to test the waters to see if people would be receptive to it. I thought that was kind of interesting.
Mm, yeah.
I downvoted, of course, but
Dude, okay, so I guess
wait, John. Before you get it,
yeah.
I have to ask: Is King? Is it King's Crown? Is he still on your list?
yes, he gets downvoted. He if you see his posts, it's always the same thing. It's like either talking about how I'm a scammer or I made money doing bots or selling votes or I sell everything, which most of what he says isn't true. I don't sell Hive generally, almost never. Um, and I've accumulated. That's why I have 2 million Hive on all my public accounts,
Mhm,
even more on private accounts. And then he says that I sold most of it, which is completely garbage and stuff like that. And then he said I made all my money on bid bots, which isn't true. He said I also haven't ever bought Hive, which isn't true. Um, I've bought more Hive than he sold, and he sold over 400,000 Hive. And the other thing is, almost everybody was using bid bots at the time, selling the vote and all that stuff like that. So
Hmm.
it was actually the norm. That's like saying smoking weed is a crime when it's legal. I mean, just because it was a crime in the past or whatever, in this our case, it's reversed. It wasn't a crime back then, and now it is for the bid bots. Like back then, it was normal, it was accepted. Now
Yeah.
it's not. But I was one of the biggest supporters of getting rid of bid bots, even though that was what I did, and I wanted it gone. But while it was here, I was going to do it and do it better than anyone else. I did it more ethically than any of the other bid bots. I blacklisted my best customers, the spammers and abusers that no one else did. No one used a blacklist. No one denied people votes. They accepted everybody indiscriminately. And
Mhm.
Mhm.
that was something that I didn't do, and that hurt me in terms of profitability compared to everyone else. But I thought that was the right thing to do, and I'm
Yeah.
glad I did. But it's also made a name for me, good and bad.
I I understood why people got rid of them, but when they were here, I used them. Actually, I used Build a Whale and Real Wolves. Like that was the two I used all the time, and it was to me. I wasn't looking at like because back then you guys remember how it was. It was like I used it as a promotional tool. It was for me to get my post out there because it was hard as heck to stick out back then. That's when Steam was like $8 or something like that. Like it was next to impossible. So I see why
If you
we got
didn't
rid of
use
them.
it, you
But
were at a disadvantage.
if you didn't
You're at
use
a
it,
big disadvantage, and that was the only way
right?
to be competitive. It was basically um, so normal that it was a requirement to get anywhere. You were invisible, and no one voted organically. No one wanted to vote somebody because it was good content, or they liked it, or they wanted to support people. That wasn't happening. Everything back then was largely selfish voting, and the bid bots just made it even worse. It was all financial incentive. So once the bid bots left, people started voting more with their heart. I mean, still people auto vote and AFK vote like other people, but more people vote organically. A great example is if you come to Hive and you are new to Hive, there's a very good chance you will make decent money in your first post, which was impossible. Like I made 3 cents in my first post. Um,
I goose egged.
and now you can expect that new users will get a good welcoming here financially and stuff like that. It's not like before where they'd be invisible. I spent almost a year before people really noticed me. And BidBots gave me a ramp to actually get noticed a lot more. But before, no one cared. And now curators are actually looking for people to vote. I remember when I could vote, which I can't now for reasons. When I could vote, I was always looking for new people to vote. I was always trying to support people that didn't get votes. I voted everybody the same. I voted at 10% across the board. You're either on my list or you're not. And I'd go around and I'd try to add people and remove people aggressively, trying to maintain that list as my curation was the people I would vote. And so I know a lot of other people were looking for people to vote as well, and that's a big change from what it used to be. It never used to be like that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. I go through the Leo Finance feed a few times a day, just looking for people's content to vote. And of course, there's authors that I see and I know, and I know what type of work they do. But I'm always looking at other people, and it's like the problem is you open up the post and it's 125 words, and it's like,
Yeah,
okay, well that's a threat.
bare
I mean,
minimum.
Mm.
so it's like, okay, well, pass on that one. So it's there is a lot of difficulty. We all have our own hot buttons, what it requires to get a vote. For me, personally, I like to see them at least 450 to 500 words. That's just my personal threshold where for a long form content, I think that's, what effort requires.
Yeah, I find it really depends on what you're posting about. Like I've seen posts range from like 300 to 2000. It just depends on what you're talking about. Like sometimes you're just trying to announce something and then people are like trying to fluff it up to the 500 words or something like that, and it ends up just being gibberish at that point. So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, a lot of people do put in like the minimum effort. They're just out there trying to get their vote staked out there. I mean, their post staked out there so the people could throw votes on it, basically. And every day they're trying to do that, and there's a lot of people that do that, and it's to be expected, really.
So you mentioned it a couple times, and I guess we have to ask. Maybe this will feed into a little bit of your view on things. Do you think Hive's going to zero? Do you agree with that sentiment? Where
No, I
what?
do not.
I didn't think so.
I
What's your
wouldn't have
view?
that much stake if I did.
Yeah, really. You'd have sold it a long time ago. Plus, congratulations. You got, what'd you say, 140, 150,000 steam back from Mr. Sun. So you got some of that returned to you.
Yeah, which is actually crazy because um, I got mine through a proxy, and they immediately sold it for Bitcoin, and sent me that. He said, "Sorry about that. It was a mistake. I didn't know. I forgot about yours." It's like, that's fine. I don't want to touch Steam, so I'm perfectly happy with that.
Mm.
And at the time, it was sold. I'm guessing he got around 20 cents, which is what it was going for. When the Steam was stolen, it was at 24 cents. So there was a slight loss there, plus some legal fees we had to cover and stuff like that. But now, when I checked recently, I saw Steam was up to 31 cents, which was a real kick in the ass. It's like, I'm
Mm.
glad we sold it. I don't care. I'm not worried about it. It's small potatoes, but it just, it's like, why doesn't it go to zero? I mean, there's no value there. They're stealing coins. They're um, censoring at mass level. And it's like, and then if you look at trending, it's $600 posts that are about, they're just garbage posts. And it's all Korean text on the front page now. There's very little English that gets to trending. It's
Mm.
just, it's a shit show. And how does it survive? Their Steam dollars are still around $3. It's like, it's just maddening. It's just like, I've said this a few times to Block Trades and Dan and a few other people that are part of the lawsuit, that it just sucks that we can't do something like get him in jail. I mean, he should be in jail for this, and
Mm.
it's nice to see that the SEC's after him, and hopefully this will give him ammunition. Probably not, but it's just maddening how he can get away with so much stuff. And then he was recently the ambassador to Grenada or something like that. It's like, this is insanity. It's like clown world.
Mm.
It's like the darkest timeline. It's just ridiculous.
Of course, they
And
revoked
it,
that. I think kicked him out of the country. So they
yeah,
learned for a
Mm.
while.
it just bothers me. That's what really bothers me the most. I mean, that he got away with it, and he gets to keep 15 out of 24 million in Steam, which I'm sure he sold. But it's just mind blowing. It just
Well, if you could take us back, which camp did you fall into when that was going down? Because if memory serves me correctly, when word came out that Sun was buying Steemit and was getting involved, there was a certain group of people that thought it was great. Hey, this guy's a marketing genius, blah blah blah, all that crap. There were other people who said, let's wait and see. Let's hear him out. And then there was the third group of people, and I asked this of Block Trades. He was in that group immediately. He said, I didn't trust him as far as I could throw him right off the bat. This thing's going south. No way. I don't want a part of it. What camp were you in? Do you recall?
I was pretty much in that camp, and I know the turning point for me is I didn't power down because I had so much invested in Steam in terms of time and energy and money and just passion. Um, I loved Steam at the time, and
Yeah.
I was frustrated because I knew nothing good can come of it. But the turning point for me was the Ask Me Nothing. I call that the interaction with Justin Sudd and Ned. It was such a train wreck and such a disaster. I knew at that point there was no turning back. There's nothing good's going to come of this. For the first time in a long time, I revoked my delegations and I started powering down. And I would have been out. I would never have been part of this lawsuit if it wasn't for Keychain. At the time, when Keychain launched for Hive, there was a bug in it that mirrored the transactions to Steam. So the moment we forked the Hive, I canceled my power down, which canceled it on Steam. And at that time, I did it early enough that I would have been out completely or very close to it by the time they stole the funds. But since I had to restart it, I basically only got about halfway through the second power down, and that's why I lost 170,000 Steam during that. Otherwise, I would have been completely out, or I might have lost a week at best. But I was mostly out of it. And the thing about this lawsuit, which really pisses me off, is they say it was because we were attacking the chain. Most of us were abandoned ship. We were trying to get out as fast as friggin' we could, and we didn't even go on Steam. We didn't care. Some people were trying to do stuff to get back at them and fight. A lot of us didn't care. We just wanted out as fast as possible. And then there was some people that they took Steam from that were not even active for 2 years, but they
Right.
had big stakes, so they took it because it was a threat to them. And I wish more of that came on. I wish more of that affected the end result. And I don't know how much I could talk about with the lawsuit and stuff like that, so I'm not. But I just wish he got more of a result from that. I wish something happened to him, like he went to jail or he was fined beyond everything and whatever. But I mean, it was a big win that we came out positive, or at least somewhat whole. And I think that's a massive win because that doesn't happen very often in the industry.
Yeah.
Most people, when you get screwed, and there's no one going to come help you. So that was pretty awesome. And it came out of nowhere too. Like we knew it was coming towards the end of things, but out of nowhere, it was like, here you go, here's the money. That was pretty crazy.
Were you part again? Going back to that time, were you part of the team since you realized exactly what was going on here? Were you part of the team that started to broach the idea of forking this thing, or was that
Yes,
underway before you made that decision?
yes, that was in a back room. It was in a Slack, and then there was
Yeah.
a Slack within the Slack that was a little bit more private. That I was part of that. Yeah, I was a big support of it. I was one of the first people to say, "Yeah, I'm done. Screw this. I'm let's go." I mean, when I said it though, I fucking had chills. Sorry for swearing. I
You
had
can
chills
swear. I
because
swear all the time on here.
you ever do something and like something happens in your life that is so scary that you get chills and your heart starts changing beats and you just feel like everything is slowed down and everything feels weird. I had that feeling because it's like, is this really freaking happening? Have we come to this point? Is it? It was just so surreal. It was just I just couldn't believe it was happening. It's like we put so much into this, and all of a sudden now we're like, at the time, it's like forking. It's like I'm 100% supporting it, but fuck, how do we survive this? Like, how do you fork and and do it? We don't have the resources. We don't have the manpower. We don't have the big budget they have. We're doing it ourselves, and that's gonna be hard as fuck. But I was completely supportive of it, and I was happy to do it, but I was scared. I was nervous. I just felt like it was going to be a huge uphill battle and it would be super hard. And then it was clear within months of the fork, it was the best decision we made. It
Mhm.
was very clear that we can do it. We were creating changes that Steam it couldn't do in a year. We were doing it in weeks. And within months of after the fork, we've already made so many changes that it was a whole different blockchain. And it was just a great example was the fork off of Steam was the smoothest hard fork I've ever seen on Steam. Like every hard fork with Steam is always a problem. the major fork. We're split into a new blockchain. We're fixing everything. We're severing. We're creating a new blockchain, and that was a super smooth, flawless transition. Yet we had hard forks that it did stuff that was very minor in comparison, and they messed those up. It's like it was really amazing the difference. And every hard fork we've done has been quite successful and has made major improvements in terms of scalability and reliability and stuff like that. And yet, the whole 4 years I was on Steam, there was very little differences in terms of changes. I mean, they changed the curve, changed the voting, added proposals and stuff like that. Those were big things. But after that, they didn't address the scalability issues. Hive Mind was a big improvement, but had problems and stuff like that. So a lot of that had to be improved. But at that point, it was very clear we made the right decision. But at the time, I was really supportive of it, but I was really nervous. I was like, I didn't know how we could do it. I was like, really like, we're really doing this, but I mean, this, I don't know how. But I mean, block trades really hit a home run multiple times since then. And if it wasn't for him, I mean, there's no way we could have been where we are now.
Mm.
Yeah, there's no doubt. We had him on one time, and we were talking to him, and it was kind of ironic because he was there at the beginning when Larimer was creating the code in I guess Block Trade's basement or something, and he said that after the fork they were going back and they were still going back and addressing code that was 6 7 years old that hadn't been updated, that was still just so far out of whack. And so it does show what we were living under for all those years. If
A
you
good
if you
example before you change topics, a good example of what you just said is the Steam media tokens. The
Yep.
Mm.
that Steam said that was all finished and ready to go. And when Block Trades and his team and everyone looked over it, the code is so bad it's unusable.
Mhm.
So what they were saying, and if they went ahead with it, we'd probably be way worse off than we are now. Um, if Steam went ahead with it as it was. So I mean, yeah, I can imagine the nightmare there. I don't look through the blockchain level code very often. I do when I'm investigating something or trying to understand something, but I don't look at it in terms of improving or creating forks or any of that stuff. That's beyond what I type of things I work on. But when I do look into it, I do look into it once in a while for like trying to figure out how things work and understand it because I like to understand things. That's my thing. I like to understand how things work. But
Mm.
from what I hear, it was a disaster. And if they went through with that, I mean, I don't even know where we'd be at. It probably would have caused a lot of problems down the road.
Mm.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask you, you kind of answered the question that because you don't read the code very much at the blockchain level. But if you just take a step back and look at things since the time period we're talking, the hard fork to today, and what you see in terms of the base layer operations, the things Block Trade's been doing, Howo's been doing, Gandalf and people like that, from a technical perspective, even though you're not reading the code, I'm sure you have a technical assessment looking at things. How would you rate where things are today compared to where they were when we forked?
I think it's a major improvement. The big focus on a lot of the hard forks we've done have been related on scalability and performance, and it's night and day. I ran 4 nodes for Build Team back on Steam, and I ran 2 public ones and 2 private ones. And at the time, we were at 256 gigs of RAM, and we were at the threshold where we had to get 12 gigs to survive, but it was short term because it was going to be a fix that would bring it down a little bit with the accounts DB, Rock DB would bring it down a little bit and put more stuff on disk. But at the time, we were getting to the point where we're outpacing available hardware. I mean, you could technically buy the hardware we needed, but it was so rare and no one provided it that we're getting to the point where you would have to buy your own equipment, pay top dollar, and host it yourself because there's just nothing available. So Steam started to knock that down to back to 256 gigs, but we've since bring it down to 64 gigs, and that's plenty of room. There's been massive improvements on performance, on the speed of how fast things work, but also reducing the hardware requirements dramatically, putting more things on disk while maintaining the same performance or better performance, improving Jussie, improving Hive Mind, just making so many massive improvements. And then now we have the all the other changes we're doing with how Postgres that does a lot of things like half, for example. Just so many improvements. Like a lot of things are moving over to half, which is basically putting things in a SQL database and accessing it through queries, which is going to make major improvements. A good example of that is, say, for example, I want to look at all the posts you have. This isn't something you would do, but let's say um, to do that, it has to walk the blockchain and go back in history and look through the blocks and find the transactions for your type of things. And there's database calls through RPC nodes that allow you to do that a little bit easier. But with Half, you can actually create a database as time goes. When you make a post, it puts it in a database. Now you can just search that database directly. So, for example, transactions is a good example of that. Is to search for transactions, you have to walk through history. But this can make it faster and have something like a block explorer that's really fast and stuff like that. Or if you're making a game and you want your transactions to be really quick, like for example, if say I wanted to take my punks and see who bought punks. I have to actually go to the account in question, punks on Hive, and go through the history of every block since that happened, and go through and find all those transactions. But with Half, you can actually store those in a database as they happen, and now you can just do a SQL query on a table to see all the transactions, which is very quick in comparison. So apps can take advantage of that. Wasn't even there before. That's something that's completely new. And as we go forward, more things are going to move over to that direction. Like, for example, account history has moved that direction. RocksDB has been removed, and now it's all half and stuff like that. Half, it's called half AFA for account history or whatever.
And from what I understand, and you kind of were summarizing it, that's going to make the idea of developing on Hive a lot more attractive, correct?
Yes, it's going to make things easier, faster.
Uh,
Um, there is a learning curve and you need to have a node to be able to do it and stuff like that. But the demands have gone down quite a bit. Like a full node right now takes 4 terabytes of space for disk space, which is quite a bit. With compression, we're able to get down below 2 terabytes, or like 1.6, I think it is. But the reason it takes up so much is because now it doesn't use RAM as much. Before we were at 512 gigs of RAM, and we had been at a terabyte by now, which you can't
mhm.
even buy anywhere. Most boards don't support terabytes, and most providers don't provide over 512 or even 256. So the fact that we've moved everything to disk has made massive improvements to scalability. We have a lot more nodes out there. We were actually declining on how many nodes out there because the requirements are getting so hard. It's getting so expensive. And the difference at the time, like a 256 node was starting at $200 to $500. A 512 gig nodes was like $500 to $3,000 or $10,000. The difference once you got to that point was astronomical in price. And then if we were looking at terabytes, you forget about it. I mean, there's very few that even will address that. Now you're talking like custom servers from places that charge a massive premium. So those scalability changes has changed everything.
And I don't know how much you've looked out there, but when you think about developing a project, and if you were white sheet, clean board, I'm coming to blockchain. I'm gonna start to develop. Um, is Hive the best place to develop, in your opinion? If you were just walking in the door, what are some pros to Hive? What are the cons to Hive? What are some other areas that may be more attractive from your perspective?
It's pretty easy answer. There's two things Hive have that, well, three things that I would say are game changers. One is what I call the community baked in. Is there's a community tied with Hive. That is very rare. Most
Mm.
blockchains are a blockchain, and then there's just forum posts, Reddit, and other things. Hive is a community at core, and
Right.
that makes things like drug wars was so much fun because you were fighting people you know, you were engaging with people you know. Every DApp and every app on Hive has that audience built in that people you know. It's like Cheers, everyone knows your name type of thing. That's huge.
Yeah, man.
The second thing is it's freaking easy. Developing on Hive is cake compared to anywhere else. It's easier to grasp. It's easier because there's no transaction fees. So there's a lot easier to scale things and to do things. Um, and the no transaction fees is huge. That's a huge win for developing games. Like it once you have to have a transaction fee, it gets very difficult to make things affordable to the end user, but also um, attractive and feasible, like even possible and practical. And then the fact that it's easy to develop on Hive. It's so easy to develop on Hive compared to anything. You can learn Hive and learn how to develop with JavaScript or Python. Within a day, you could start writing something. Good luck doing it on Ethereum or any of those other blockchains that have that. So that's a huge, huge win. Those are three big things that I think are massive for Hive. The thing that isn't massive and is a huge downside is the user base. We are microscopic in the world of blockchain.
Mm.
Splinterlands has been getting a lot of exposure and has been getting known from everywhere. But outside of that, we have a tiny user base, and that is our biggest deficit. And that's why I say all the time that onboarding is probably the most critical thing we could do now. More users is a solution to every single problem. Complaining about rewards, getting downvoted, not getting enough upvotes, or somebody getting too many upvotes, dApps not getting enough users, tokens not having enough liquidity. All these things will be fixed with lots of users. We need
Absolutely.
to start getting lots of users on board, not at the point where we do it now, where we hand on board 1 or 2 users a day. We need to have mass adoption. We need to have lots of users. And I'm not, I don't have the fantasy of mass adoption. I think people who believe in mass adoption are living a fantasy life. There's no way everybody in the world's going to use Bitcoin or any of these things.
No.
It's too complicated in the current state. And to fix those problems and to protect the users, you have to move to centralization. Like, for
Mm.
example, Bitcoin, people are going to lose their keys. Like I always say the mother test. Picture your mother using it. What would happen
Mm.
within the first week? I mean, that is an example of it. So you protect them by maintaining their keys for them or helping with the keys, and now you've turned into centralization again. You're at banks again. But I do believe we need to step up how fast we onboard, make it easier, make it more attractive to people who come here. We've done marketing, and that didn't work very well. We onboarded very few users; they didn't do anything. We need to solve that problem. And if we can get a lot of users on board, even 100 users a day would be a massive improvement. If we can get 100 real users a day, we would start making some major progress because that is a percentage of the active user base right now. And that's the biggest thing we need to fix and do. And I think that's the biggest room for us. And to do that, I think one of the things we need is smart contracts. I think we need a native smart contracts and token system. And I think that is really one of the biggest things we could do in Hive outside of onboarding. But those are the two things I think we really need to address and are important to me.
Mm.
Yeah,
And
I
So,
know.
I know smart contracts and tokens is the next step of things where we're going from there. Um, and it can't come any sooner than yesterday. I mean, I I think that's the biggest thing we can do.
Yeah, I would agree with you with everything you said there. And you mentioned gaming. I've looked at it from the social media, and I go back to that ancient Dan Larimer post years ago of the iceberg and his idea of well, I forget exactly what he titled it, his evil plan to take over the world or whatever. And he wrote about how social media is your inroad, the Trojan horse to get support and get valuation to your coin. And you mentioned transaction fees associated with gaming, which I guess that's equally as applicable there. But my view has been you can't have social media on any other chain other than Hive simply because of the transaction fees. I mean, I don't care what Polygon charges. If I got to pay a cent or two to give an upvote, most people aren't going to give upvotes. And the idea that you're going to be able to create these social media apps tied to Ethereum, tied to these other blockchains, uh, I don't think is going to work. And I think the no transaction fees on Hive, that's the game changer.
While I agree with you, I think it's not as black and white as that.
Okay.
Um, the first thing I'm going to rewind a little bit and address some of the things you said before I forget my train of thought. Is you said the social media part, that's community baked in, and that's one of the big selling points of Hive, and that's what I think is a huge bonus with Hive. Is no one else does that. We have community baked in, and that's huge. Knowing who you're interacting with and stuff like that's huge. Transaction fees. You were saying that things wouldn't work with transaction fees. I can give you a great example. Use Splinterlands. I can use an even better example is Gods Unchained. I heavily invested in Gods Unchained. In fact, I was on with the founder of Gods Unchained, and I did a live stream, and I opened 2,000 packs live on stream, and he said I was a freaking crazy to do that. And I aped in pretty heavily, and I have over 32,000 cards. I will tell you what's involved in selling one card. Okay. And I'll tell you the solution too. Um, so when I sell a card, I foolishly or smartly tied it to a Trezor wallet, a hardware wallet. So I go into the marketplace, I find the card I want to list, I click on it. I see the card, I say, okay, I click a button that says lowest price. It sets it to the lowest price to put it in the market. I click that. I click list it. I comes up with a MetaMask thing. I say confirm. It says okay. It's like then it comes up with a thing to ask me to sign it. I click sign. Okay. Then it comes up with my Trezor wallet. I put my pin in for my Trezor wallet. Then it says, do you want to do this? Yes. And then I get 6 prompts on my Trezor that I have to click 6 times. Boom, 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 boom. And then that lists one card. I have 32,000 cards. I cannot list them all at once. I have to do this. So if I have a card that I have 10 copies of, which I do a lot of cards, I'll do that. And then I'll do all that process for the first one. Then it'll come up, start me back at confirm, sign,
Wow.
Trezor, 6 buttons on the Trezor, confirm, sign, Trezor. So I'm listing cards, for example, the Real Man was a very popular card. It was a cheap card, but it was very popular. I had 180 of them. So I listed all of them, and I sat there and I was watching a TV show or YouTube, and I just sit there mindlessly pressing the button, and I listed 180 of them at the time because they were just so popular and they sell quickly. But for the most part, I only list the diamonds, the high cost ones, because I want to get most of what I can out of it before as fast as I can. And it's a slow process because it's a slow market. But anyways, the amount of steps on other blockchains to do all that, whereas in Keychain that would be one button, and
Yeah.
chances are Keychain would allow you to do multiple. So there's easy solutions, like for example with the punks, it's so much easier. But that's not even talking about transaction fees. Now, Gods Unchained, at the time when I bought all those cards, I was at the point where I thought I'd never sell them because at the time there was transaction fees. And I just wasn't going to spend the transaction fees. They were basically every time you now. Here's the thing: I do all that stuff. Now, if I need to change the price, I have to do the whole thing. But even worse, I have to click on it, find it down the list, find the lowest price, copy it in, list it, and then go through all those steps to list every single card. So if I list 180 and then the price changes, and I want to be at the lowest again, I got to do that 180 times 4 button mouse clicks or 6 mouse clicks and like 7 Trezor clicks. That's a ridiculous amount of work. And imagine transaction fees through that whole process. Now, like I said, I have a solution. And IMX, the guys made Gods Unchained, made a side chain. And that's a very doable solution for all these things. Even Hive might end up getting a side chain outside of Hive Engine. So they made a side chain. So all you have to do is pay ingress and exgress Ethereum fees. You have to pay the fees to go into the system, and then from there, I'm listing all these things for free. It's all free. It's just a huge amount of button clicks, and it literally
Mm.
takes me forever. I basically dedicate every month. I'll spend some time and I'll list cards and um, price cards. I'll put on a show or I'll watch YouTube. I've been into Your Mom's House. It's a podcast with two comedian. It's a couple of two comedians that are a couple. They're married and they're hysterical. And it's an
Mm.
hour and a half show usually. So I'll do that. So okay, I'm gonna do some cards now, and I'll go through and I'll list more cards, and I'll look through and I'll say, okay, last price changed, and I'll find all the cards that have changed in price mostly or have gone up a lot, and I'll list those and relist those. So I'll just try to keep putting more and more in the market and get more and more in the market. And eventually I'll sell most of them. Like right now, I'm out about a third of my Ethereum I have out of the game now in terms of the cards I put in. Um, and I'm not too worried about because the airdrop I made almost 30x on. So what I put into the cards, I made 30x on the airdrop. But I still want to get my Ethereum out. So I'm focusing on the cards that have the most value, but it's a slow process. And I literally will spend an hour and a half watching a podcast. I'll spend an hour and a half putting cards up, and I haven't even made a dent on those 32,000. I mean, I haven't even made a dent. I mean, I've maybe gotten a lot of the high value ones out. So financially, I listed a lot of the value there. So financially, I probably made a huge dent. But numerically, I haven't even touched the thing. I might list some cards that have 10 copies, but I have cards that have like 200 copies. The most I usually will list is a card that might have 55 copies because it has a high win rate and I know they'll sell. So I'll list that one, and that takes me, I don't know, 10 minutes to list that one card, or for 55 times, or maybe 15 minutes. But it's mindless, and I can just click the button. I don't even have to look at my Trezor. I can see what I'm doing and just click it 6 times, and then I see it pop up the next thing. But I'm usually watching something. But it's a nightmare. I mean, I literally know to sell my collection is probably 400 hours of work of just labor, and
Dang.
I don't even know if that's going to sell it or whatnot. But the nice thing is right now they're giving rewards for making transactions. So every time I sell one, like today I sold a card for like $60. Um, so every time I sell one, I get IMX tokens, which are worth like $1 or something like that.
Mm.
So there's some incentive to keep it rolling and stuff like that. But it's a lot of work, and with transaction fees, that would be impossible. And that's why when I bought the Gods Unchained cards, I was pretty down and out about it because I saw the transaction fees and realized how difficult this is, and you can only list one at a time. And luckily, they came out and they made the sidechain. They were promising it for ages, and it took forever. But once they did, it was a totally game changer, and I started listing it. But before then, I was just sitting on it. And I sat on it for quite a while. But the airdrop was massive. It was insane.
Mm. I mean, you're going through that, and I recently sold all my Splinterland stuff, and the guy I sold it to, we sat down and we did it in, you know, 100 cards at a time. Didn't
Yep.
cost us anything to change it, and I got rid of my collection in probably, let's say, 30 minutes to an hour.
A good idea. A good example, similar example is D City. When I
Mm.
worked on D City, I had a few big cities at the time, and I sold one in. If it wasn't for the Discord bot that made it so much easier, that did the keychain integration and did it, holy crap, that would have been the same situation as Gods Unchained. But I was able to sell my um, D City for like less than 5 minutes, and I had a
Awesome.
ridiculous amount of cards. I mean, when I go in, I go deep. So I had a ridiculous amount of cards, and it was painless. I mean, it was painful if it didn't wasn't for that Discord bot. That bot made life so much easier. You could just say transfer all cards, and it'll give you a keychain prompt, and you do okay. It would only get through like maybe half your collection or a third of it, but you can do it again and finish up, and we were able to do the deal really quickly.
It's crazy,
So
man.
I mean,
Got a
other chains, that stuff is it's hard. So you have to think about that. If you go heavy on stuff like um, card games, like what the repercussions of the level of work is going to be involved. Like look at NFTs and stuff like that. It's like this stuff is very manual. It's painful with crypto. It's like, especially if you're smart enough to use a Trezor wallet or a ledger to protect your assets, you've pretty much locked yourself out. Like for
Mm.
example, for my Gods Unchained, if I decide, okay, this Trezor is a huge pain in the ass, I'm done with it. I'm gonna put my cards off of that. I have to go through every single card to do all those steps for 32,000 times just to get it off my Trezor. So if I wanted to move it to another account and not have the Trezor so I can list them easier, I had to go through it anyways. So I mean, I've put myself into a, predicament where I'm forced to do that.
Mm.
I mean, I have sets of cards. I have like 200 of a card that's only worth 16 cents each. I mean, it's not the end of the world if I never sell those, especially since the airdrop was so lucrative. So, I mean, I can say, okay, I'm going to forget about all those cards that are worthless or only worth a little bit. But it's just you can't get out unless you put in the labor. And
Yeah.
fortunately, I can do it so mindlessly that I can watch something and stuff like that. It's not so bad. I can just sit there and do it. And even with the Ledger Nano X, you could probably do it on the phone, which I haven't tried doing, but I could probably get away doing it on the phone possibly. But just sit
Mm.
in the playroom, which I'm doing now. So, but it's a lot of work, and other blockchains, that's really difficult.
Mm. I think we're spoiled sometimes. We don't realize how good we got it. So I got a question for you. Um,
42.
yeah, perfect. Good reference. Love it. Great movie. Better book. Um, how would you say, because you just said before we started talking about Gods and Change, you said the big thing, and me and Tass talk about this all the time. The issue to solve all problems will be more users. So if you could, if you, because you just went over that experience on Gods Unchained, that sounded like a nightmare. And as easy as we think we have it on Hive, there's still some roadblocks. What would you say would be the number one thing we could do to onboard more people? The easiest, let's say.
Um, Not market, do the opposite, do things that people
Mhm.
start seeing, do things that get your name out, the no bad press, no press is bad press type of thing. And I'm not saying do things that are bad, I'm just saying just having your name out, anything makes a difference. Like get people out there. Like we did the marketing campaign and stuff like that. We onboarded like 70 users, and I've looked at the wallets of those 70 users, and there's about 8/10 of a hive throughout the entire group of them, and it's all from memo spam that they got it. So they're not active or anything. So obviously that doesn't work. And we have to at a higher level and stuff like that, more than that. But I think doing things in getting exposure and getting people to participate in other areas to talk about, like for example, getting people to go on Reddit and share their posts, but do it in a way that's not just link dropping or spamming, and it's difficult. Twitter, because Reddit doesn't like Hive or any these type of social media platforms because they're competitors and they don't think highly of them. So dropping a link in there to a Hive post is very difficult to get working. But you have to come up with clever ways to do that. In person things. A big example of this, and I'm gonna say something that people don't probably like, but we do this Hive Fest every year, but what are we doing? We're marketing to ourselves. We're doing a Hive Fest for people that are already on Hive, and
Mm.
that's great. I think social, getting people to meet each other, awesome. Why don't we do one that we're inviting people that are not on Hive and do something to welcome people to see, understand what Hive is, what it offers, what does. Why aren't we doing that instead? I mean, it's we have the resources. I mean, we pay for the Hive Fest, a lot of it through the proposal system. And it's difficult to get people to do stuff like that because they don't want to do that because it's basically work and they don't want to go out and run a show. I mean, it's a lot of work to do something like that. But
Mm.
I think that even I don't know if there's people we can hire to do that. But if we did stuff like that, I mean, I think that would be a big factor is trying to have shows that are for people that are not on Hive already. And I know people are doing that independently, but every time we do the Hive Fest, I think we should do it where we have 2 days where we have everyone is invited and like it's open to anybody to come for free to kind of see what's going on in Hive what Hive can do, and then have the days where Hive people hang out, or vice versa. We have 3 days that people are hanging out, and then after that, it's open, and then people who want to stay along and help out or whatever can or whatever, and do it on the tail end. But I think combining that event, I think, is the key way of making it practical and doable. So I think that's a big factor. I think that's one of the biggest things we could do is making that inclusionary to people that are not on Hive, and using that to introduce people. And a lot of these things that people are talking about, like the Splinterland stuff, that's stuff that people that are not on Hive could benefit from too as well. And so I think that's a big factor. I think that's one step. There's a lot of steps, and it's not easy. I tell people all the time, like for example, when they're talking about marketing stuff like that, the cost to acquire a customer is like $200. I
Mm.
mean, it's not cheap, and we it's Goodyear blimp advertising to onboard that way. Basically, the concept is you go to a football stadium, you see a Goodyear blimp in the sky. It doesn't mean you're going to leave the football stadium and go buy tires because you saw
Mhm.
the Goodyear blimp. It takes 8 times for you to see it. But the idea is when you go and you need tires, you think of Goodyear. You're not expecting people to go to a football game and leave wanting to buy tires,
Mm.
and that's the problem. And it's really expensive to do that type of advertising. So we have to come up with a different way. And I think a big factor is if we do cool things, and like the hackathon I did before, example, get exposure. We're doing something, and then that's bringing exposure that way too as well. And like when we do big hard forks that make major changes, get somebody on Medium to write it, try to get CoinDesk, try to get as many outlets as possible to explain why this hard fork is such a great improvement and how it's different than other blockchains, like why the performance is so much greater than other chains, and how we could do things and talk about that stuff. And that is how we onboard people from exposure. And people are like, oh, wow, that sounds pretty cool. I got to check this out, type of thing. I mean,
Mm.
it's not easy, and it's no simple solution. I don't know the solution, but there's definitely things we can do. And I don't think the traditional approaches are going to work very well because they're just so expensive, and we don't have um, $50 million a year to spend on advertising without having it affect us financially in terms of having a huge amount of sell pressure.
Right.
So I know there are people are working on things that are doing just that, and there's some amazing people that are doing that, and it's just we need to do more of it, and we need to do more public stuff type of things. But
Mm.
I think the biggest first step could be the Hive Fest idea is making that inclusionary to other people that are not on Hive, and maybe making a split event where a certain amount of days are for people to meet and greet new people, and to introduce them to apps where dApps can do presentations like D-City and Splinterlands could talk about what their product is, not to Hive users, but to people that don't know what it is. And then another part of it would be people that are on Hive that want to talk about me and stuff like that, and how much they hate me and stuff like that, and drink beers and shoot the shit type of thing. Have it open for both. Do both. I
Mm.
mean, I think that's the low hanging fruit, but
Mhm.
it's not easy. But I mean, it's definitely. And so what? No one shows up. People still can drink beers and hang out for those 2 days or whatever. It's not a complete loss.
Mm.
Once you have it set up, the cost is not really that big of a deal at that point.
Mm.
Yeah, I think one of the things, in my opinion, is I don't think we excel at the user experience. I don't think there's enough focus on the user experience. And you look at online applications, it's, people spend their time on stuff they like. And unfortunately, long form content is a very small percentage of the internet. Uh, you get, and Splinterlands has done a terrific job, but there's a user experience that those who play Splinterlands get out of the game. And I think if you look across the Hive ecosystem and look at most of the applications, the user experience isn't there for, like you said, us non-Hivians who are already in the ecosystem. And I think that's something that has to be overcome. And I don't know what the answer is.
Well, the problem there is we don't have AAA developers here developing. We have a lot of people that are at home
Mhm.
doing their own thing, hobbyists, and trying to make something. And they haven't had any previous experience doing any of this stuff, but they're taking advantage of what we have to offer. Um, my opinion is we have Splinterlands. Why don't we have 100 Splinterlands? We need 100 of
Mhm.
them because that's the solution. We need more users and more apps, more dApps, more things that people come here. We need things that people wake up in the beginning of the day and it's like, oh, I got to get on Hive and do my thing that I want to do. We need more things for people to find that reason. And that is the solution to more users is we need more things. And it's not easy because everything in blockchain is traditionally, or in crypto, is traditionally financially motivated. Everyone wants to make a reward. Everyone wants to make money. You have D-City, for example. Everyone goes in there and they want to make a massive investment and a massive return. But how can everyone make money? It's impossible. Somebody has to lose for other people to make money. And the problem is no one wants to do anything unless it's financially motivated. I mean, I can create a game that has amazing story, amazing graphics. I can do some of it myself. I can hire people to do that. But unless if I make money to spend the time on it, it's not worth it. And if people that want to play it, unless if it's as good as Gods of War or Red Dead Redemption, they're not going to play it unless if it's money oriented. I mean, there's only so many Oregon Trail type of games you can build that people are going to play that keep them interested. I mean, I wouldn't even go Oregon Trail. I mean, Oregon Trail is still fun to a lot of people. I'm talking some of these games are just they're like there's no thought to them. There's no game. There's no fun. There's no incentive to play other than money, and it's very difficult. You have two types of successful formulas for gaming in crypto: Ponzi and gambling, and they're both illegal in the U.S. and most countries. So to build something outside of that is the only real solution is tons of content. Splinterlands does that by releasing new stuff all the time, which keeps people engaged and on stuff. But that's expensive and it's time consuming and it's difficult. And when the games don't support that type of system, like games that have no depth and nothing to it, it's hard to add content and think it's going to change anything. You're just basically shifting the Ponzi further along the line, is really what most of them are. And there's no incentive to spend time and money to build a deep game that has all the story and all the content if you're not going to make money off of it and make enough money to support that. And the developers have the same mindset of the users. They want a huge return on their investment as well, and their investment is time. And it's very difficult to solve that without taking the easy way out, which is Ponzi and gambling. And again, those are illegal, but a lot of people do it. But those are the only tried and true solutions that work outside of just doing a ton of content and then a fantastic game. And a lot of people just don't have the skills or time or interest to put that investment in. It's
Mhm.
very difficult. I mean, um, I think dApps are the easier way out, like having the photography app that people could do, like an Instagram clone type of thing, stuff like that, replacing certain things and putting it in Hive. You don't have to have a financial motivation to use it. There's something you get out of it outside of that. But the financial motivation is really the killer to um, all innovation because we've been spoiled that everything makes money. Everything is financially motivated on Hive and almost everywhere else. So it's difficult to want to do something unless you're going to make a lot of money doing it. So that stifles a lot of the innovation because just there's better places to put your time and money. I mean,
Mm.
if you're not going to make money on it, do something that does make money. And that's why you see all these things that are low effort, low hanging fruit type of thing to just get some money because that's really what people have been trained to do.
Mm.
It's hard to get out of that mindset. And I mean, it's hard to take blockchain, take Hive or any blockchain and make it usable in a real world that has some benefit other than money. I mean, I had one concept, and I'll tell you about that I never executed on. But one of the first things I wanted to do when I got on Steam is to I'm into 3D printing, as you probably know. In 3D printing, there's a lot of sites that are where you offer models, and almost always they're free. You go in there and you can download a model and print everything. 99.9% of what I do in 3D printing is free. I just download a model, print it. I just buy plastic, which is called filament, and I buy a printer, and that's it. And I maintain it. And but I thought about maybe having a blockchain version of Thingiverse, which at the time was the thing out there. Now it's kind of crap, and there's a better version out there. But having a blockchain version where people can post a model, and people can buy it or buy tokens that allow them to grab models, or some type of way of paying back the model creators, because a lot of these people are creating models for free, and it'd be like the reward pool, but it would be for the model people. But it's hard to strike a balance where how to people that download get rewarded because they want to be rewarded, because somebody has to be able to distribute rewards to the people that make the models. So how do you make that system where it's balanced, interesting to everybody? But I wanted to do something like that where it was basically um, Hive, but for 3D models, and there would be a reward pool, tokens people can download if they have so many tokens or whatever. Maybe they have to leave comments and pictures of what they make to earn rewards so they can buy models. So the more photos they take of models that they've printed to help the authors that make the models get their models out there, they get more tokens that allow them to download other models or something. I don't know. And it's hard to come up with that concept and make it fit within an ecosystem that requires financial gain for every transaction. I mean, that's the boon and the crux of the all. Everything is tied to financial gain. Following people is because you want to find people to vote and to distribute rewards, so you don't get your voting power to 100%. You also want to engage with people, so you get votes on your stuff. I mean, everything is financially motivated, and it's hard to sustain that in every aspect of life. And it's a blessing and a curse.
Absolutely. Um, dude, you were on here. I think it was like 2 years ago or something. So I'm going to ask that we don't spend 2 years before your next appearance on the show, man.
Yeah, just
Because
hit me up.
I appreciate you, man. Everything you've done, for the blockchain and the battles that that you fight, and help build this up, man. We appreciate you. And
If John, if I could jump in here for a second
yeah,
and give some kudos to Marky, that maybe some of the people who are watching live or some of our listeners don't know. And
Mm.
we did touch upon it. We touched upon the public persona and the downvotes and the stuff like that. But one thing that I do know about Marky is that anytime there's any problems going on, especially from a technical standpoint, whether it's at the base layer or whether it's with different projects, he's always willing to jump in there, dive into the code, try to track out transactions, find out what happened, see what's going on. He doesn't, seek out recognition for that. He doesn't talk about that. But I know of two instances that I'm thinking right off the top of my head of where people have had problems, project teams, and he's driven right in there and gotten his hands dirty and helped them figure out what went wrong. So, there's a lot of things going on that people do that sometimes the public persona, but you don't always know the story on the back end.
Mm.
Yeah, I try not to make a big deal of stuff like that. I don't talk about. I get approached a lot by people because I know things, and I have a habit of trying to understand things, so I understand things differently than most people. So I get approached by a lot of people when they have questions on how things work or what the best way of doing things or stuff like that. And so I talk to a lot of people with that way. So my public persona is rough because I do downvoting. I do things that people don't want to do. Um, and it's made me hated and loved by certain people. I mean, some people hate me. A lot of people hate me. Some people love me, and there's very few people that are indifferent.
Mm.
And I don't let that bother me. I mean, I came here to do what I do. And I knew at the time when I got here that I was going to be um, doing a lot of things like that. And so that's why I built the witness early on. I started building the things I did, and because I knew I'd be involved. And I find it a fascinating system. I love the community built in. I think that's an awesome aspect. I just wish we had a million users. But I think that would be that's the one of the biggest selling points of Hive is people, and everything has a consequence in terms of somebody sees you, talks about it, has an issue with it, or doesn't have an issue with it. You help somebody, you don't help somebody. It's a community, and it's a tribe, for lack of a better word. And I think
Absolutely.
that's one of the biggest selling point. I know when I talked to Matt before, for Splinterlands, one of the things they talked about is being on other blockchains like Wax and all that stuff. And he's like, there's no community there. There's
Mm.
you can support them and have the token and they can use it, but there's no community. There's no one there talking about. There's no people engaging. There's no people playing with each other. It's just there's nothing there. It's just a wallet address. There's a bunch
Right.
of numbers that show up on the screen. I mean, that's what we have that no one else has. I mean, that's a huge selling point, and we need to leverage that. And um, like one of the examples I was working on was a game for punks called Plunder Punks. It was a pirate game that you'd go out and adventuring and swashbuckling and fight other pirates and stuff like that. But the main goal was to plunder um, treasure and stuff like that. And the punks would be a big part of it. Is a way to utilize them. They would be captains on the ship and stuff like that. And people know these punks. They've gotten to know specific punks, and they have certain punks that they like and whatever. But you would also have the people. You would see other people sailing, like you might get attacked by a certain other pirate that would be a Hive user and stuff like that, or whatnot. So I thought that'd be an awesome type of use for that type of thing. And um, drug wars is a great example. If you think I am infamous on Hive for my downvoting, you don't know what I did in drug wars. I mean, I was taking on entire clans by myself. I was hated by people. You should see the messages I got. It was ridiculous. Ron Ronson, from
Mm.
Pal, he could tell you stories about how I took on the entire um, Downward Clowns community. Like I would nuke them every single day. I would nuke every single user so they can never come back at me. So once you got on my radar and you attacked me, I would wipe you out and everyone you knew and everyone you talked to, just so I didn't have to worry about you attacking me. And I did it so efficiently that I was able to maintain this, not only
Mm.
with my wallet, but also using the hobos that were cheap and free,
Mm.
and using it such a way to take advantage of that. I also had better vision than most people on what was going on.
Mm.
But there was a Korean community, the dragon community, that would attack me every day, and I would go over and wipe them all up, so they had no attack power. And I did this for quite a while. There's another story about how, I'll tell you about drug wars, but what made it fun is everyone you attacked, you knew them. It was a
Yeah.
huge aspect. People hated me, but that was fun. It was like loving your enemy type of fun. I mean, certain people I'm sure I pissed off, but a lot of people love to hate me each day. Um, and that was an awesome game, and it was a crappy game in terms of the Ponzi and how it was just broken. But the community aspect made it a huge selling point.
It's
It made
fun.
it
Mm.
hugely fun, despite all the crap that was with it. But there's one story I'll tell you. I had a character that I renamed to Justine. I don't know if you remember her, but I asked her if I
Yeah.
could do that, and she said yes. And I did that. And I attacked people with it. And of course, it was a mammoth account. And I would attack people
Mm.
all the time with it. And I got some people would message me. There was one particular person in the Pulse Discord that I would attack every day, and he would message me, "Honey, stop attacking me," in like kind of like love letters to me. And I never responded, but I always remembered them. And
Mm.
one day I told him that it was me, in public chat, and he was like dumbfounded. But Justine would get all these messages from people, and she's like, I don't even play the game, and tell people it's like that's not me. And a lot of people didn't know that, so they were attacking her, thinking it was her and stuff like that. It was me. But I asked her ahead of time. I would never do it if not. But there was a thing in Drug Wars where you could change your name to any name, and then I used her. I forget what I used, but I didn't use her profile image, but I used her name, and everyone thought it was her, and it was just one of my many accounts I used. Like everyone in Drug Wars had at least 5 or 10 accounts. But there's no way that game would have survived a week if it wasn't for community. It was broken as hell and had so many flaws in it. And it was a Ponzi. He scammed people with the way he did things. He like changed things and broke things and took things away that were shouldn't have never happened because that's not what was promised. It was an absolute disaster. But out of all that, it was still a blast because of the community.
Yeah.
And
Dude.
Downward Clowns was hysterical because they would attack me all the time, and I'd go in and wipe them out every day and just go through them and just knock out anyone that had any resources.
Yeah, I remember.
keep
I
them
remember
from
that
building
clan,
up.
man.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great.
So, I
Dude,
mean-
this story time with Marky. This is great, man.
So I mean, that's how powerful community is. That's how powerful that one aspect is. It can turn anything into something much greater. Because ultimately, people are on the internet for people, and that's what it is. It's people.
Mm.
Love it or hate it. I mean, that's really the biggest aspect.
Yeah, man. Yeah, it's community, man. It's the killer app, man. It's why I'm here and have been here, and no plans of going anywhere. Dude, yeah. Again, like I was saying, hopefully it's not a couple of years before we have you back on. And next time, hopefully it's an actual launch of something instead of your offline Hive project.
Yeah. I had plans on a bunch of stuff, but right now I'm kind of focusing on other things. I'm kind of got
Trying
too
to
much
sell all
crap
those
happening.
cards.
Yeah,
Sounds like that's a
Yeah,
full-time job.
full-time job.
Yeah, it's annoying, but I do that while I'm doing other things. Like I could be doing that right now and not even be affected by it. I could, if I was at my computer, which I'm not, I could probably be selling cards this whole time and you wouldn't even know. I mean,
It's
it's
awesome.
that brainless. It's just time consuming, and I try to do it in chunks. Like I'll spend like an hour doing it, but it's like I don't like doing it, but I just want to get rid of them. It's like it doesn't even matter because what I got for the airdrop kind of dwarfs what I spent on it, but it'd be nice to sell them. Like I have some cards that are worth 10 Ethereum each.
Oh, wow.
I have some really massive cards, and they don't sell very quickly. And I have one particular card that's 10 Ethereum, and there's no other card on the market for it. It's just they sell slowly. I mean, even the cheap cards sell slowly. There's just not a huge demand. People aren't buying cards like crazy, and it's the older original Genesis sets, so it's not in high demand. But it does trickle. Like yesterday, I probably sold 15 cards. The cheapest card was probably like $50. I mean, they sell. It's just so slow, and it's just a painful process. But I avoid the cards that are like 16 cents. I just focus on the cards that are like a couple bucks or higher, and I'll just go through sorting by last price change or win percentage, which I know are going to be the more active ones. And then I will go and do the diamond cards, which are like the gold foils, and do those because I only have so many of those. So and they fetch the most, so I'll try to focus on doing them too, and make sure they're the lowest price in the market, and if they're not listed, list them. But it's just a lot of time consuming stuff. But it's brainless, so I can do other things, which is nice. If I could do other things, I don't know if I'd bother, but it's a lot of money on the line just sitting there doing nothing, and I'd like to turn that into Ethereum. And the thing is, as Ethereum gets more expensive, the prices will likely go down. So Ethereum's been getting back up, and so if I wait too long and Ethereum's 20,000, for example, chances are I'm not going to get $50 for a $50 card anymore. So you want to get out of it as fast as you can, and I do what I can manage what I can manage in terms of time. I mean, I have all the time in the world. I'm unemployed. I sold I got rid of my company. I didn't sell it, but I got rid of my customers and stuff like that. So I like I say, I do whatever I want each day. I decide what I feel like doing for the day, and
Mm.
sometimes I'll do that. I'll usually watch a podcast or watch YouTube videos or watch a show on my computer. I'd rather sit in the playroom and watch on a big screen, but I can't do that when I'm doing that. So I'll sometimes watch a podcast or something. Like I said, I've been watching this Your Mama's House, and it's pretty funny.
Your mama's house. I gotta.
Yeah, Your
Yeah,
Mom's House or Your Mom's House, I think it's called. It's
Mm.
two comedians. They're a couple, and it's hysterical. It can get pretty raunchy, but
Mm.
it's a funny dynamic. The two of them, and they're great. And the stuff they talk about is just hysterical. I've been watching them lately, and it's just so funny.
I'm literally written it down. So
Yeah, definitely check them out. It's great. Their podcasts are long though. It's a weekly podcast. They're on like 702 episode, and they're like an hour and a half. They're pretty long, and they go on for a while, but it's really good content. And I've been trying to watch it. The problem is with podcasts, I'll get into one and I'll be like, "Oh, this is great." Now I want to watch from the beginning. It's no way to do that, so I never get into it because I like try to start from the beginning. It's just especially with this 700 episodes, an hour and a half. There's
oh,
no
that's
way.
great, dude.
So I'm just starting from where we are now
Yeah.
and trying to keep up with it and do that.
Good stuff, man. Thank you again for coming, and we'll get you back on as
All right.
soon as we can, and we have new things to talk about. So,
All right. Just hit me up if you need me or whatever.
oh, for sure, dude.
I messaged you recently for it, but generally, if I'm around, I can do it. I'll do it.
Cool, man.
I don't
Sounds
really
good.
talk much on the blockchain these days because things going on with Excel and stuff like that. But
Yes.
I do use Threads once in a while. I've been actually looking at setting up. I had Steam Social before in the past, but it wasn't very used, and
Mm.
I've been thinking about revisiting that for Hive lately. It's basically a Mastodon instance, but um, focused on Hive only type of thing.
Right.
But I thought about doing that again and kind of build that, but with Threads, I don't know if it would be people would want to do that and stuff like that. But it would disconnect the rewards part of things.
Mm.
But,
There you go. All right. Task. Have a good one, man. Toodles.
Ciao, everybody.